All right, so this is going to be an interesting topic, guys. Every now and then we like to do lists. Now, it's usually something we do in the off season, and the reason why we do it in the off season is because we're just looking for content to talk about. But here we've got something going on where, because of Jack Sawyer's play, I'm like, you know what? Let's pull out. Let's talk about the play, and then let's try to put it in context historically with what we have, what the great vast amount of library that we have of Ohio State football, on where that play ranks in the top all-time top defensive plays in Ohio State history. And this was not easy. This was not an easy exercise, to say the least. Now, offensive plays, it's a completely different thing. I mean, you got so many offensive plays to choose from. Defensively, it was a little bit tougher, and I'm going to. This is usually when we pull in the chat and we say, "Hey, guys, we need your input here." Unfortunately, I can't share that with everybody on the screen, so I will try to read them the best I can. But let's first start by talking about the play, and before we bust out our lists, and just as you reflect the last 48 hours on this game, kind of give me your feelings right now of where you're at with that particular play. I'll start with you first, Corey.
I mean, it's my buddy Kyle. Well, your buddy too. You know him. Put out a great poll that I refused to take part in, and he said, "What's the better 80 something yards to the heart of the South? Is it Jack Sawyer or is it Ezekiel Elliott?" And I was like, "Look, I'm just off the Jack Sawyer play. I can't answer that right now. Okay, Zeke was 10 years ago, so it's tough because back then, 10 years ago, I was just as freaked out about that play as I was Jack Sawyer. So um, I'm trying not to have recency bias here. It is one of, but I will say it is single handedly one of the greatest live plays I have ever watched in a Buckeye game ever. Period, offense or defense. It's just I've watched it 1,000 times. I can't get tired of it. I made a freaking video to it. I don't ever do that. So just because nobody had done actual Captain Jack Sparrow to it, everybody had done Titanic or Creed or whatever. I was like, well, come on, the obvious one is Captain Jack. But I just, I mean, it cemented his legacy as a Buckeye legend. Otherwise, we'd just be talking about why he should be a legend. Now it's indisputable he is a Buckeye legend for that play. And Ryan Day said that to his mother after the game when they were hugging. He says, "Your son just became a legend."
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Before I let you talk, Chris, let me read something here in the chat real fast.
From Bobby Max.
Well, Bobby Mack gave us a $2 super chat. Does Maurice Claret's strip count as offense or defense? That is a defensive play. We
Yes.
might have been on offense when it started, but that is a defensive play. I'm counting that as a defensive play. One on here that I totally forgot about, guys. I can't believe JTT's pick six against Penn State.
Yeah.
I totally forgot about that play. It's not on my list because I it didn't even cross my mind. How dare
Now
me?
JTT put together the best defensive game ever.
Yeah. Without a doubt.
Well, yes, but I would say Jack Sawyer's last three games might be the greatest three-game stretch from a
It's,
defensive player
it's
I've
the
ever
equivalent
seen.
of what Cardell did.
Yeah,
Ooh, it is.
maybe the
No,
equivalent of what Zeke did.
Zeke, equivalent of what Zeke did. Yeah. Wow. Very good. All right, Chris, go ahead, man.
Yeah. I mean, Jack Sawyer went into that game trying to cement a legacy, and he became a legend. It's that simple. Just like Corey was just saying. Uh, if Ohio State goes on to win the national championship, and I have every reason to believe they will, someday there's going to be some kind of whether it's a plaque, a statue, something is going to be signifying Jack Sawyer and what he did on that campus. That play was that monumental. So yeah, and obviously it was the impetus for us starting this whole poll tonight, or you know this whole ranking system tonight. So
Yeah. Um, the fact that he's from Pickerington, Ohio, is what I've been thinking about today. The dude grew up in the shadows of the horseshoe, man. The only high school really that you could say would be closer was be like if you went to Upper Arlington,
Yeah.
you know. But the fact he's from Pickerington, Ohio, just on the outskirts of 270 and southeast Columbus, grew up a Buckeye fan, and came back, you know, loses to Michigan for a fourth time, runs out to the middle of the 50-yard line. And what could have been, think about this, what could have been, we didn't know at the time, but that could have been his last moments on the horseshoe field as a player. And those moments were, I'm going to rip this flag down off of our 50-yard line. We get the home game against Tennessee, and so that won't be his last moments on the horseshoe. But the run that he's gone through, the fact he's from Central Ohio, basically born scarlet and gray from the day he was born, this is it. You know how we look at Chris Spielman? That's how this generation will look at Jack Sawyer.
Yeah.
His jersey is the iconic 36 to these kids.
Yeah.
That's, to me, we're living in that moment now. We will be talking about Jack Sawyer for the rest of our lives.
What's
And our
funny,
kid,
Eric, is as somebody who sells jerseys, I promise you that what you're saying is fact.
yeah. Sean Schrock, $2 holler. He says, see Grant against Miami.
Yeah, that was a big one.
We're going to get there, guys. I promise you. Thank you, Sean, for the super
I'll
chat.
tell you, I did a top 10, and I'm seeing so many of my top 10 instead of 5.
Yeah.
Listed up there.
So how do you guys want to do this? Do you want to start at 5 and work our way down?
5, 4, 3,
5,
2,
4,
1.
3, 2, 1.
All right, and then Chris, you want to go back and give us what else you had on your list afterwards?
Yeah.
Sure, why not?
Okay.
We can all memorialize them.
All right, let's start with number 5. Go for it, Corey.
Will Allen, 2002, against the team up north to seal that game with the interception. It seems like a simple play, but they were driving. We were ahead 14-9. They could have scored a touchdown to keep us out of the title game. It cemented our first title appearance since 1968. Well, I mean, to me, it was significant. And he stepped in front of the pass for John Navarre, took it. And then they'll say, it's party time, Columbus, the great Brent Musburger call. And it was surreal to me at the time, knowing that we're about to go play Miami for the national title. This is set in stone now. We are going to play Miami. And that was my first ever time seeing him in a title game. And to me, and it also just cemented the Tressel legacy right there. That he beat the team up north to get to the title game, and then of course we all know what the rest is history there. But that was a huge play. Seemed simple, but it was a huge play.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what. I chose actually one of Ryan Day's first playoff moments. I got Jonathan Cooper breaking Clemson. That hit he laid on Trevor Lawrence. And after that, Lawrence just never looked the same. I remember us sitting there talking about that, Eric, and he just looked dejected after he took that sack. He looked like he didn't even want to go back out there. So that was my number 5.
Number 5 for me is Steve Miller's pick 6 in the Alabama game. I think we were talking before in the pre-show, back before we realized we were going to have technical difficulties, that I had kind of forgotten about that play, because Zeke's offensive play is the one that kind of everybody goes to, 85 yards to the heart of the South in that game. but that was such a significant part of that game. I think you reverse roles in this one. The defensive play is the one everybody's going to remember, and Travion Henderson's 75-yard screenplay is the one that kind of everybody's going to forget
Yeah.
about in this game. But no, that's number 5 for me was Steve Miller's pick six against Bama. Number 4.
Steve Miller's pick six against Bama.
Nice.
I had that number 4. This is the reason why. It was Bama. It was Nick Saban, the first playoff. It was I got to be honest. Even though we were ahead when Steve Miller did that, I still didn't feel we were going to win. I don't know why. I just felt Bama was invincible, and we had such bad history against the SEC, and I just didn't. It didn't compute with me that we could beat Alabama, especially at one point when we were down like 21-3 or something like that. But when he did that, and then you hear the classic Chris Fowler defensive lineman dream, I gotta be honest, that's the moment I said, oh my god, I think we're gonna win this game. I think we're going to the national title game. It was unthinkable to me because we had gotten so close so many times. We even got to the game a couple times and got smacked by the SEC with the Gators and LSU, and I just didn't feel it was possible until I saw it. And when Steve Miller did that, everything turned in my head like, we're going to beat Nick Saban. So it was just so huge.
Yeah, you guys make me wish I had put Steve Miller a little higher than I did, but I actually had him just outside the top 5. Um, Number 4 for me, I'm going to the Fiesta Bowl. How about AJ Hawk just destroying Brady Quinn? Absolutely knocking the crap out of Brady Quinn. That to me was huge.
It's hard for me not to put AJ Hawk on my list because he's one of my favorite players of all time, but he's not on my list. Number 4 for me, Tyvis Powell's interception of Devin Gardner in the 2013 Michigan game when they went for the 2-point conversion to win the game. At the time, we were on a 23-game winning streak.
Yeah.
And that secured that. Now, of course, we all know what happened a week later, but in the Big Ten championship game. But I remember that was one of those. To me, that was the defensive equivalent of when we won in overtime and against them. That sealed it. We got it with the pick, and to this day, Tyvis Powell doesn't have to buy a drink when he's in a bar in Columbus, Ohio. People know who he is. They're buying that guy a drink. So Tyvis Powell was number 4 for me. The interception on the 2-point conversion. Number 3.
Man, that's a good one. I didn't even think about Tyvis Powell. That's a really good one, Eric.
Yeah, I forgot that one as well.
Number 3, just happened. Jack Sawyer. I don't know if you want to claim recency bias. I don't think it is recency bias to say that is one of the greatest top 5 plays of all time in defensive history of Ohio State.
Yeah.
I mean, think about the situation. You guys were there, obviously. They're on the goal line. I mean, they weren't completely on the goal line anymore because of Caleb Downs and Lathan Ransom, but Jack, not only that, the play before, he put the pressure on the quarterback up the middle, getting held to force an incompletion. And then Jeremy Birmingham tells it. The rest of the defensive line was kind of calling for substitutions. They were gassed. Jack was the one waving them off like, no, we're good. And he just lined up and beat the crap out of that right tackle. I mean, just destroyed that right tackle because the right tackle out-leveraged himself, tried to shove Jack, and Jack shot his arms down, go around the edge, and we know what happened. And then he cemented himself as a Buckeye legend, as we talked about. It's got to be top 5.
Yeah. I'll tell you, I couldn't go through this whole list without putting something in against that team up north. So we're gonna talk about Devin Gardner again. And how about Zach Boren? Leveling Devin Gardner, planting him like a cheap flower, I believe was the comment.
Mm-hmm.
Just, it made for one of the most iconic visuals. We still see the posters. We still see, pictures of that everywhere. Zach Boren just destroying Devin Gardner.
Not to mention the layers to that. When the Boren family was initially a Michigan family.
Yes.
And Bourne was playing fullback and became a linebacker and solidified the linebacker spot next to Ryan Shazier that year.
Real quick before you go, Eric, Ethan, I just noticed your comment in the chat. We did not include any special teams plays in this. That would be a good one, but we did not include special team
That'd be
plays.
a tough one.
Can I ask you a question about the last one you just chose, Chris?
Yeah.
Is that truly an iconic? It's an iconic picture.
Was it a huge play?
Is that you're saying that is the third
No.
biggest defensive play in Ohio State history?
What are you saying is biggest, though? And this is where I wanted clarification. Is it the most memorable? Is it the most important? Is it? I think if you ask a lot of people, that's going to be something they go to as a play that they will always remember.
I mean, I do have the autographed picture of it. So,
Well, I
I
think we all
mean,
do.
yeah, it's iconic for that reason. And in the moment, it felt big. I just don't know that that's the number 3.
And it might not be number 3. I probably got it a little high. But you know what? At the same
I
time,
mean, it's your list. You can choose whatever
I
you
probably
want.
do have it a little high because as I think about my AJ Hawk pick, I might swap those, to be honest. But to me, it's just like you said. There are a lot of things that we just simply forgot.
Yeah. Number 3 for me was Joey Bosa's walk-off sack against Penn
Yeah,
State in 2014.
Oh, that's a nice one.
that's a great one.
It
One of
was
my top 10, by the way.
yeah, and it. I mean, that one was when I think of Joey Bosa, it's the first play that comes to my mind, and it's one of the biggest plays at that time because we go on to win the national championship, and if that play doesn't happen, Penn State might win, and we never go on the run we do in 2014. So that's number 3 for me. Before we give our top 2, if you haven't already, please smash the thumbs up button. Hit the like button for us, please. If you're not already a subscriber to the channel, it's free. It doesn't cost you anything, and it helps us out. Subscribe to the channel. We really do appreciate it. And again, please hit the thumbs up if you haven't already. All right, time for our top 2. Corey.
None other than Maurice Clarett in the championship game, stealing that ball from Sean Taylor and bailing out Greg Krenzel. Had to add that. I don't even think the fact that it was done in the middle of a championship game, to my mind, as a biased Buckeye fan, the greatest national title game ever played, because that was truly unexpected. Everybody expected Miami to throttle us. Everybody expected Ohio State not to be too slow, not to compete with them. Remember the infamous Mark May, Trev Alberts were both there saying there's no chance this game shouldn't even be played, and for us to come out on top of that one, I mean, it's just Maurice Clarett. I know that I'm glad, Eric, you specified it is a defensive play because I had it in there the whole time. I was like, how is that not an iconic defensive play?
Yeah, it totally is. Ethan says Tommy Eichenberg's Rose Bowl performance. That was a great performance. There's no doubt about it. But that was the accumulation of the whole game. And if that's the case, go back and look at the stats on some of the games from the linebackers in the 70s and 80s when they were like
sacks or stats.
Yeah, Chris
I
Spielman
mean,
had a game with what, 20
Chris
tackles?
already listed
21
AJ Hawk.
tackles against Michigan, I think it was.
Chris already listed AJ Hawk. AJ Hawk's performance against Notre Dame was superior to Tommy in the Rose Bowl. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, number 2, Chris.
This is where I got Captain Jack at right here. Okay. And again, might be a little recency bias, but man, I'm going to say it's number 2 with the caveat that it could jump into my number 1 spot should Ohio State go on to win the national title. It was that significant.
Okay. He's number 2 for me as well, believe it or not. It sits that high for me because I'm sitting as I'm making my list and I'm like, Joey's number 3. And I'm like, I got to put that one ahead of what Joey did in significance in the quarterfinals in the first ever 12-team playoff, and just a huge play and what has been a great run for him. Number 2 for me, which means number 1 for you, Corey, is
Sea Grant. Then obviously you know what play I'm talking about. And a game again, nobody expected us to win. Goal line stand against what was basically an NFL light team in Miami, and he ragdolled Ken Dorsey to the ground to force an incompletion and get Ohio State's first undisputed national title since 1968 against a team that was heavily favored. And once again, Ohio State started the trend of vindicating new playoff systems or new postseason systems for determining a national title. So, C. Grant, I know it was just a blitz off the edge. Nobody blocked him, but he did his job, secured the win.
For me, this is where I got Claret at. You know my love of that play, Eric. So I've got Maurice Claret's strip in here.
It's the ultimate hustle play.
Me too. It absolutely is. By the way, do you guys know Maurice Claret was at that game?
Yep.
Yeah.
That is fantastic. Donald Hoffer says Big Cat's hit against Missouri.
That was actually in my bottom half of my
It's
top
not
10.
in the. It wasn't in the Rose Bowl though.
It was
No.
just a game against Missouri.
It was a regular
Yeah.
season non-conference game against
It was-
Missouri
Jones was their
at
quarterback. I
Missouri.
think that he broke
Yeah.
in half.
Yeah.
You could go in Katzamore's freshman year and list like 7 things.
Unrated horror. Captain Jack's play with the strip scoop score was a 14-point play. He stopped them from gaining 7 and gave us another 7. To me, that's the most memorable.
I can't argue with that. You know,
Ethan Maxfield. Ryan Shazier's forced fumble versus Monte Ball at the goal line for the
That was pretty
win.
awesome.
Also keeping the ball from breaking Ron Dane's record versus Ohio State. Good one, Ethan. Yeah. Goog says C. Grant against Ken Dorsey, harassment incomplete for the 2002 Natty in the Fiesta Bowl title game, a culmination. I believe. Do you remember who the national play call player was? It was Jackson, wasn't it? Wasn't it Keith Jackson?
It was Dan Fouts and Keith Jackson.
Yeah, but who I believe on the radio was it Keith? It might have been Keith Jackson. After that said, you can rest easy now, Woody. I believe he said that. If it wasn't him, it might have been Mike Tirico on the radio was the call that said, Woody Hayes, you can now rest easy. Ohio State's national champions again, which I thought was a great call when you talk about calls. Now, if we flip this over and we talk offense, you know I'm never going against Holy Buckeye. That is my all-time greatest offensive.
is there an argument to be made that Claret's strip can be offense and defense?
There's an argument to be made of that, sure, but we're going to leave it on the defensive side. I'm just scrolling back through real fast.
Well, I'll tell you, the only one that I haven't seen on there or seen or heard that was still in my top 10 of what we didn't mention was, what about Iggy's big interception versus Penn State this year? That interception as they were driving down at the end of the first half, where he just kind of stole it from the player.
Yeah.
That was in my top 10 that I did.
All right, so give us your 6 through 10 or 10 down through 6. Go for it.
Okay, so we had, and what's sad is I can't believe I forgot C. Grant. I literally forgot C. Grant. But anyhow, I had JT's pick 6. I had Bosa. I had the big cat hit. I had Iggy's interception. And hey, how about an honorable mention for maybe the best defensive play of all time? Anthony Schlegel laying out the idiot fan who runs on the field.
He still talks. By the way, do you know that fan and him are friends?
Well, they got to know each other real well in that moment.
Yeah, they did. That's a good one, Chris. That's a great one. Great honorable mention there, man. That's funny.